Hi guys, welcome back. If you're new to my channel or simply not yet subscribed, my name is Brittany, and please make sure to hit the subscribe button along with the like button. It definitely helps me out so much and I would really appreciate it. This topic is one that I found extremely interesting, and you're definitely going to want to stay tuned through the whole video because there's so much. There's a lot of topics that lead into other topics and you're not going to want to miss it. With that being said, let's dive in. Phil Schneiders was born on April 23rd, 1947. He was an American explosives engineer and he worked for the Special Services of the United States, and he had access to information of third-level secrecy. So why are we talking about Phil Schneiders? Well, he was essentially a whistleblower.
I met Phil over the telephone approximately 3 years ago, and in person about 2 years ago. And during that period of time, I became very well acquainted with him. He was, at that time, still working for the government, and he didn't say much about what he did. But nonetheless, over a period of time, I became well acquainted with him. I found him to be a person of integrity and honesty. And about 1 year ago, he became totally fed up with the New World Order and the establishment. He thought he was working for the betterment of mankind and the work that he was doing as a geologist for our government as well as for NATO. And he found out that it could be and was actually anything but that.
And today we're going to dive into some of his claims. I actually found this topic while researching another topic, and I was like, I've never heard of this before. Along with being an explosive engineer, he was also a geological engineer.
I guess I can always start off by saying loose lips sink ships. That's almost a pun anymore. I'm Phil Schneiders. I worked 17 years for the United States government as a geologist and aerospace engineer as well as a structural engineer. I worked for such elusive occupations with Boris and Knudsen, Bechtel, Page and Page, Aerospatiale of France, and a host of other EG&G and a host of other, Los Alamos Laboratory and these kind of things. But rather than bore you with all those statistics, I've got cooked up a real mixed bag here of different topics, and it's might be a little bit like brain overload, but I'll start from the beginning. And like I said, I worked 17 years. Co-invented methods of shape charge blasting as well as laser rock deflagration, which means rock is literally melted or powdered by a special laser combination, and the residue of the rock underneath is applied as a coating, as a liquid coating, kind of like instant agate, if you could imagine a hunk of agate, which is a hard silica mineral.
And was a civil engineer for the military and aerospace. He had a wife and a child, and his father was a physician and military officer who happened to serve for both the United States and Germany at the same time. Phil had the opportunity to be able to work on the construction of at least 2 underground secret bases, as well as 13 deep-seated military underground bases. In 1994, Phil decided to stop working and communicating with the American Intelligence Services, and he went as far as returning all of his awards. At this point, he would start working as a normal geologist. In the last 2 years of Phil's life, he would start speaking and traveling publicly to talk about the things that the government was hiding. He would share his accounts of underground bases, aliens, and secret technology, and a talk of a new world order with aliens at the helm. He traveled from US to Canada, England, and even Japan to share these accounts. And he was very critical about the government keeping the public in the dark. At one of his lectures in 1995, Phil had said that within 22 years, 11 of his best friends had died. And these were all people who knew information about this conspiracy theory. Even weirder, 8 out of 11 of these people were marked as suicide. I'm not saying that none of them could have been, but that's a lot in a small amount. I mean, it definitely is strange. Phil was very adamant that the US government and intelligence agencies committed horrible acts and even things that would be deemed as criminal. So we're going to dive into some of them.
We have another topic. This is an area to where I worked. I worked 11 years of the 17 years at Groom Lake, S4, S2. It's in the Nellis Air Force Base area. In fact, Groom Lake is, I'll show you in the picture right here. It's right here. Groom Lake is quite the place. A lot of rumors and other kinds of things have come out of there. Of course, people have stood on the outside for years and wondered at what's been flying there. There's all kinds of things been flying. Let me give you a brief overview. Start in ancient history land here. Back in 1909, the U.S. cavalry was engaged in catching some banditos that had crossed over the Mexican border into a place called Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. And they went into a cave or a hideout and killed the so-called bandits, but what they found out they couldn't explain. And they were called horseshoe craft at that time, or horseshoe ships. There were UFOs, and they saw these, what they called demons, gray demons, little gray guys all around the place. That was in 1909. Now in 1933, our government was actively engaged with the Europeans, mostly the French and the English, and special researches dealing with aerial phenomenon. And once again, the term flying saucer or flying disc didn't come about until much later, supposedly right around the mid-1940s. Anyway, the whole thing here is that also in 1946, I might want to add, we were engaged in atomic bomb testing and this kind of a like, and of course the area of Bikini Atoll. Some of the pictures are over here on the white board, showing with the actual language of both the U.S. Army and U.S. Navy archives. Anyway, these floating ships were seen as early as 1945, 46. Some of them were called Foo Fighters, and you name it. They were fully known about, maybe as early as 1935 or 36 by our U.S. Navy.
The American government had entered an agreement with the gray aliens in 1954. This one is called the Greada Treaty. And what was considered the UFO problem would begin to be handled by an organization specifically created by the U.S. government in 1933. In 1935, the presence of aliens on Earth had become a recognized fact. And over the next 20 years, the employees in that secret organization had tried to find out what exactly these aliens wanted and establish a connection with them, some sort of just trying to contact them. And in 1994, they were finally able to accomplish that contact. And President Dwight Eisenhower actually managed to have a meeting with the Greys. He met with their representative, essentially. The aliens refused to transfer any of their technology to humans, but they wanted humans to stop making certain kinds of weapons. Obviously, President Eisenhower is like, yeah, that's not gonna happen, and the meeting was a bust. But that wouldn't be the end of it, because they would have other meetings. And eventually they landed on the Greada Treaty. In this treaty, it stated, aliens could not interfere with the affairs of humans. Humans would keep the existence of aliens a secret. The existence of them on Earth a secret. And specifically for the Americans, because it was the US president that was, talking to the Grey. For the Americans, aliens would help with technical development. And what would be the most alarming aspect of this entire treaty would be that aliens would be allowed to take people and animals and experiment on them for scientific purposes. We know that the government has done things like this before. Take MK Ultra or the Montauk Boys. MK Ultra has been a little bit more proven than the Montauk Boys, but still, we know that if they deem it beneficial, that the government will go and do those things. So the Greys would have to submit the names of the people that they took to a secret government committee that was known as the Majestic 12. After the experiments were concluded, they would have to return the people. So they couldn't keep the people, but they could experiment them, and they'd have to wipe their memories so they didn't remember anything about the aliens and what had happened to them. So because they had this plan, aliens would give us technology, and then therefore they could experiment on us. And because of this, they needed a place to do this. They needed a place to work together. So numerous underground bases would be built for this reason. The aliens would do their experiments and the humans would get their technology. It's said that the Grey aliens are actually the employees of a much more powerful extraterrestrial civilization. So basically, they do the grunt work. And if you dive into encounters with other alien species, you'll find that the Greys pop up a lot with them. With reptilians, with mantids, the Greys often pop up. So it's been theorized before that the Greys are essentially like the worker bees. It's believed that the goal is the unification of intelligent species in the universe into a single union. Regardless of what kind they are, they could be ethereal, they could be physical, or something else. And President Eisenhower wasn't the only president that has been linked to aliens. JFK was linked to them. That's the whole conspiracy theory with Marilyn Monroe and why she died, essentially. And President Trump has also been linked to aliens. President Trump ordered the creation of a military space force in 2019. The idea was that essentially to protect our satellites from other countries. The Defense Department had been warned for years that the U.S. was unprepared for a confrontation in space with Russia and China. That Russia and China were creating things that could wipe out our satellites. And these satellites were vital to communication, navigation, and intelligence. What's even scarier is that not that long ago we encountered problems with our satellites. The whole thing with AT&T and all of our phones being shut down. And, well, I mean, you can still use the internet. You can still use your phone. Just you couldn't make phone calls. You couldn't text. You couldn't use the internet if you weren't on Wi-Fi. And then, not that long later, Facebook gets shut down. So it's scary in the sense that it is such a plausible reality. That we rely so much on our satellites and our phone. I mean, I know I do. I wouldn't be able to get almost anywhere if I wasn't using my GPS. If I'm good with going through the woods and finding my direction, but as far as going places, like driving, I am very, like, I can't do it. But some believe there's another reason for the Space Force, not just to protect our satellites from other countries, but to protect us from aliens in space. Another thing that's believed is that most of the aircraft technology has stealth technology, was developed by studying an alien ship that had crashed in the United States, and that AIDS was actually invented at the National Ordnance Laboratory in Chicago, Illinois, and developed as a virus to control the human population, which, well, we all know about COVID. And we have that the US government has a device that can cause earthquakes, and that the San Francisco earthquake, as well as the Kobe earthquake in 1995, did not have a pulse wave, which leads some people to believe that it was actually man-made and not a natural occurrence, which would be a whole lot of power. That the bombing of the World Trade Center in 2001, 9/11, which I remember when that happened, I was in kindergarten. I remember sitting in the classroom watching it on TV, and then we got sent home at like noon or something. Like, we got sent home early for it. I was really confused, and my mom was distraught, and I had no idea what was going on. I was 5, but horrible. But it is believed that 9/11 was created, and the bombing of Oklahoma City on April 19th, 1995, was carried out using miniature nuclear devices. That Bikini Atoll was destroyed using nuclear weapons because there was actually an alien underwater base there. And it's been theorized, like, that's not a new thing that's been theorized by any means about aliens being underwater. There's so much that we don't know about our oceans. So it would be really the perfect hiding spot. The secret plan of the High Greys established a new world order on Earth, managed by the United Nations, but where the Greys are actually in control. And the New World Order is kind of something that seeps into reptilians. And if you're interested in that, I have a whole video on reptilians. I also have a whole video on the Greys. So definitely make sure to check those out. And that there's a large number of secret underground military bases in the United States, approximately around 130. They are up to 2 kilometers deep and are the size of cities. The bases were built in case of a war, and they're interconnected by high-speed monorails, where the trains move 1,478.86 miles an hour on a magnetic cushion that hovers 2 centimeters above the rail. Which brings us to the largest thing that Phil would talk about. Something that he said he directly experienced. Dolce, New Mexico is located on the border of New Mexico and Colorado. It's a small town, has about 3,000 people, and it's the tribal headquarters of the Jicarilla Apache Reservation. Might have butchered that name. I do apologize. I am horrible at pronunciation. It's also said to have been the location of a secret underground alien base. Phil claims that in 1979, he participated in building a secret underground base in Dolce, New Mexico. He was suspicious about the job at first when he noticed both Green Berets and Special Forces were there. So kind of like, hey, like, what are they doing here? And when they drilled underground, came face to face with a 7-foot-tall gray alien. Now, he'd never seen an alien before, so he panicked and shot it because, you know, that's what we do when we're scared. We just pull out guns and shoot. So when he pulled out his pistol and he shot the alien died. Another alien proceeded to shoot back at him. And Phil lost some fingers, which he did have missing fingers. Phil was saved by a Green Beret that ultimately lost his life saving Phil. In total, Phil had said that 60 humans had lost their lives in this battle as a result of getting hit with this alien weapon. Phil was exposed to radiation. And he actually ended up getting cancer. He claimed that there were 1,477 underground bases around the world, 129 being in the United States. Each base costing a minimum of $17 billion. According to Phil, this black budget is hidden not only from the public, but also other people in the government. And it makes up 25% of the gross national product. Phil also believed that there were people that were in the government that were trying to keep him quiet.
And I urged him last winter and spring to go public and lecture. Finally got him out. He's given over 30 lectures to date. All very successful, very interesting. In fact, so successful there have been 13 attempts on his life since the beginning of the year.
And that wouldn't be the first time that we heard something like that. Like, whether it's somebody speaking the truth or they're just causing problems, it's a well-known secret that people of higher power like to get rid of people that are disrupting things. And I mean, look at all the accounts with Men in Black. Phil would end up being attacked with weapons. People would try to push him off of the highway, and he would even get into street fights. Now, anytime there's a whistleblower, most of the population or people hearing it are like, yeah, okay, dude. Yep. Aliens, cool. But a lot of people changed their mind when Phil died. On January 17th, 1996, Phil Schneiders was found dead in his house in Wilsonville, Oregon. He was lying next to the piano, and the tube from his own catheter was wound around his neck. However, according to the official report, he was shot dead by police officers who had come to deal with a large number of unpaid taxes and fines. And while they were talking to them, Phil had become aggressive, where they had no choice and they had to shoot him. But I do want to mention that by the time of Phil's death, Phil was in really poor health. So, with being in that poor of health, police officers probably wouldn't have taken much for them to detain him if he had, in fact, became aggressive. And even stranger, even though Phil's body had been shot, like, he was shot, and there were also signs on his body of torture. His death was ruled a suicide. So he was shot dead by police officers. There were signs of torture on his body, and they're like, that's a suicide. So it almost seems like the cord was wrapped around his neck after he died. There's a lot of things that just don't add up about his death. And that's why it makes some people believe that, maybe he was really onto something. Maybe he's really saying something that's true. Now, I know that sometimes the police do some shoddy work, and sometimes, not saying all police officers are bad, but I know that sometimes that happens. I dealt with it myself with my mom's death and her death, where she was clearly killed. And even as far as the man that they had, or the man that killed her, had a warrant out for, his arrest while he was getting evicted from my parents' house. And they were still like, they didn't even check. They just let him take his time gathering up his things and leave. So I know that not all police work is great. Not saying that's all of them. And I do know that sometimes, like, my mom had a she was clearly poisoned, and they were just like, oh, nope, her death was accidental. Sometimes they just do things that don't make sense because it's the easiest thing to just close the case. So that could have been what happened here. Or it could have been a cover-up. He might have been onto something. I mean, the government has stated like that they have organizations in place, or had organizations in place, to look into unidentified flying objects. And if the Greada Treaty is true, then it clearly states that they are not allowed to say that aliens are on Earth. And if they did, they broke the treaty. But the government lying to us, they've literally admitted that they've been lying to us for years. So, come on. If you're not new to my channel, you know that I'm a big fan of aliens. My dream is to meet an alien and know I'm meeting an alien. I just want to meet one before I die. Please. Anyways, that's all I have for you guys today. Please make sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and let me know what you guys think about all this information in the comments down below. I would love to hear your thoughts. And make sure to tune in to my next video, or you can check out the one right here. And until next time, I love you guys. Bye.